All right, good morning, everyone. We got a Sunday live stream going. We got a special one with Coach Nick and Harrison Trade Better 99. So, morning, fellas.
Good morning.
Yeah,
Morning.
so this is gonna be a fun one. I see Nick is putting on a lot of content now. So he is definitely going down that social media path. If anyone doesn't know, he was interviewed by Zuber recently, and he's kind of a weekly, every other week guest, I think, on Zuber's channel now.
Yeah, I'm trying to do every other week or so, at least once a month. And then I was just on Dion's too.
That is right. So I think we're going to have a lot of questions from that also, but definitely going to kind of touch on maybe Bitcoin. I think a lot of people risky or safe, even just investing in general. So Harrison, did you want to start out? I'm not sure about you, Harrison. You have anything in Bitcoin, real estate right now? So what does your stuff look like right now? Is he frozen? He looks frozen actually.
Yeah, he does look.
All right, okay. So Nick, let's go with you then real quick then. I know, you're big in the Bitcoin space, and I think people are gonna have a lot of questions for you, but maybe quickly touch on your thoughts on, is it risky or safe asset class for Bitcoin?
Well, I mean, I guess for me, I don't feel it says risky, but for everyone else in a lot of the Bitcoin universe might feel nervous. They've never invested in digital assets. They see that basically 95% of crypto is awful, terrible. There's a lot of rug pulling, a lot of shenanigans going on behind closed doors. And that's why they need to really understand the difference between Bitcoin itself and the rest of crypto. Bitcoin itself has a limited supply, right? And a lot of the other cryptos are like just man-made. They hoard the supply and then they could sell as much as they want at one time. And that just obviously kills the price, but they make tons of money. So the biggest difference between those two is huge. So it's day and night. So if you ever lost money on something like even Ethereum or Doge or any of the million other crazy named F.I.R.E coins and everything else that they have, then you know that Bitcoin's totally different than all those. And it's also has such a high market cap now that it makes it for a lot more, I guess, less volatility, but it's still a volatile asset as it's growing and getting bigger. But I also think it's still in its infancy stage. So even though there's a lot more risk probably than real estate, there's still, I believe, a lot more gain than real estate in terms of that aspect. It's kind of like you could 100x, but obviously there's more risk. Real estate, you know what you're going to get? You're going to get about 3% in terms of inflation. You're going to get the cash flow that you get and the amortization. So I don't know. It's up to you, but I love both, to be honest with you. I think they're both great investments. One, know for sure it's going to be there for the rest of time. You need real estate. You need somewhere to live. A lot of people can't even afford most of the places. So you're going to have tenants and renters. And it's, I think, the safest asset class on the planet. And you get to, save from inflation and the money printer from the government. Whereas Bitcoin, it's a new asset. So it's easy for it to 10x, 100x because it's still growing. There's only 2 trillion in it right now. And one day I believe, it's going to take over gold, but we're a long way from that.
Like I said, Harrison, before your screen froze, I was asking, do you have any Bitcoin as far as your portfolio? What does the allocation look like right now for you?
So I own a small amount of Bitcoin, Cardano ADA, and Ethereum. Those are my 3 assets. I'll be honest, it's like I've always had the issue with Bitcoin as it not being a transactional item because it takes about 10 minutes to an hour to transact with other people. So looking at it as like a monetary value, that's always been the hardest part for me. But I still hold it because while I may not understand it, the value is going up. So it's I just can't. It's one of those where I'm looking at other coins. Or cryptocurrencies in general. Ethereum, that looks like it might be adopting the EU right now as their potential stable coin or something like that. Or with XMR Monero, which actually is more cash light and actually has really good transaction times. It kind of nerfs a lot of the what's it called? the mining, because it's, you always have these 51% attacks with Bitcoin trying to get it up to that 21 million. So it's one of those where I see the value and I don't see the value of it. When it hits 21 million, I'm like, okay, it's going to be a cool, awesome baseball card. I guess I can't really see it as like a transactional item. I'll be honest there.
Quickly, I think that before we head into that, sorry, I'm kind of lost my train of thought real quick, but that was going to be back my other point. So Nick, you, I believe, touched on you don't own Bitcoin in a wallet though, right? Yours is in iBit. Is that correct?
Correct. I own mine in iBit, and I own MicroStrategy, which is a Bitcoin treasury stock. And it comes to Bitcoin, it's more like digital gold. You're not just going to be transferring it like, you can go to Steak and Shake and get a burger right now if you want. But as far as it's a store of value to me more than anything else. I know a lot of the maximalists want it to be a transactional thing, but I just think it's going to be more of a hedge against inflation, against the money printer. And if you want speed and anything else, you'd probably go to what's called Solana. It's a great exchange, super fast. You can even trade your Bitcoin on it now really fast. And that's an up and coming one that nobody really talks about. It's a million times better than Ethereum, but Ethereum has like the name brand, Pepsi, Coke, you know what I mean? But I understand what he's saying, but I do believe that Bitcoin is going up forever. There is a limited supply. When that happens to hit, that'll be great. And even though there's 21 million, there's really only about 15 million, because the creator, Satoshi, his coins are lost forever. They're never going to be taken away. And then there's also people that like lost their wallets, right? You heard about the guy who threw it in the trash and he has like $9 billion. He can never find it. So there's a bunch of coins that have been lost forever. So I think there's really about 15 million coins. And when those all get bought, I mean, think about all the millionaires, think about all the countries that could just print money themselves. I mean, I'll be really surprised if it doesn't go into a real game theory mode where people just start buying like crazy. And then who's really selling? The only people that are selling maybe need money, but it's going to be people that want to hold forever. And that's why I also do iBit, like I told you, Mark, because I sell covered call strategy. So I could actually make money on my iBit. And I get cash flow like real estate, but I also get the store of value like real estate as well, and the equity that keeps going up, or at least it has been going up. I really believe it's going to go up forever just because of the limited supply. But yeah, I love what everyone has to say there.
I think that's going to be where a lot of the questions may come in from is like, I think someone did mention, Andy said, great episode with Dion. So I think a lot of people might have some questions on that. And is it kind of safe to say then, like from what I'm understanding or hearing you, so like the reason for iBit for you also is the ease of use and not having to, if it gets lost, like your cold, what is it?
Cold storage
yeah. But is it also, are you not seeing it as a transaction? That's why it's more just like you're saying, it's just a store of value for you. Is that safe to say?
One of the reasons is, like I said, if I said in the past, if I get, I knock my head on a motorcycle accident or I die on my way to work or something crazy happens, I want my family to be able to just grab it easily. They don't got to worry about seed phrases or any of the stress that comes with that. So I just choose iBit because it's a safer investment. I also, I don't got to worry about getting kidnapped or anything. That's kind of tucked away. There is no seed phrase. Don't worry about it. But yeah. But for me, like, I love the volatility because I do covered call options. So when the equity goes down, I make more money and then I sell it. And then when it goes up, I make more money on the equity. So for me, volatility is actually a good thing. A lot of people see it as like fear or scare. And I would too, if I didn't understand how covered call options work and being real safe and smart. So I basically just stack my cash and live my life. So I'm one of those weird people that actually make money off my Bitcoin and I get to live off it without selling it.
Before we dig into that, Harrison, did you have any questions for Nick, or did you want to touch on anything? Maybe quickly, Harrison, when you hear the word risk, what comes to mind first for you?
So for risk is that for Bitcoin, especially since it's an open ledger, it's one of those where I like what Nick's talking about because he's doing calls and everything. So you're not touching it. And I think the option path is probably the better way of going with it, because as far as the risk goes, is that these could be a seized asset if you're within the government or something like that. I mean, if you have it in cold storage or something like that, because they're saying, hey, this was, back here, some sort of illegal transaction happening. We're going to take this as evidence and, good luck. And so I like what Nick's doing with that, as just like he's not losing anything with it. And if anything, it's more ways to get paid. And I like the risk mitigation from there.
Yeah, talking about risk, it's really three risks I think of when I think of Bitcoin as someone who's been in it for a while now. One, the volatility. That scares people. They sell, right, when it's down. And they never want to sell when it's up because they think it's going higher, which I do believe, but it's volatile. It's going to go back down and up and up and down, and people get stressed out. Like I said, if you plant a seed of a tree, you don't dig it up every day to see if it's growing, right? You just leave the seed there. You know it's growing in the long term, and you're going to bear the fruit. I think another risk is regulatory uncertainty. Governments change, not just for the United States. This is a global asset, right? So governments change everywhere. We had some Operation Choke Point here in the United States with the prior administration, and it's not a knock on them. They just didn't see, that's true. 95% of crypto is not good. It's not safe. And then that last risk to me is digital security is needed. A lot of people don't want to get hacked, afraid to click a link, just different things like that as well. So I think there are three main risks to Bitcoin. But if you start to understand, how to make money off the volatility, understanding that, like for me as a 20-year basketball coach, that I got to change the way my team plays based on how the refs are calling it. So if the government changes a certain way, look, I saw this new administration. They really love Bitcoin and the things they're doing. I'm going all in. Now, can I change things later? Sure. I mean, I owned real estate here in California. I knew the inflation was really going to help me because there's a limited supply of houses here, nowhere to build. But I saw that they're changing the laws, the county, the state, and I got a little nervous because they're so tenant friendly. So I got out of that because of regulatory uncertainty, and I moved to Bitcoin. You know what I mean? So I just think you got to keep pivoting, though I do think Bitcoin is the long-term thing. And I think diversifying your portfolio is great as well. So a lot of people won't even put 1% or 2%. When I was talking to Dion, he said he had 1%, and that was the first time I actually knew that he did that. I think that's great and awesome. I know that
in Bitcoin or in the Tesla
in
Tesla.
His was in Tesla, but I think it was in Tesla. But I would love to see him maybe start grabbing some more Bitcoin a little bit. You know what I mean? But everyone has to dip their toe in the water. But the only way to really feel better about it is to study, to watch these videos that I do daily HODL on my YouTube channel, F.I.R.E HODL. But also that's what I did with Dion, with Zuber, with Mark here, is I studied real estate. I watched Bigger Pockets. I studied Brandon Turner and David Grant. I did all that. And I did that for Bitcoin. I read the Bitcoin Standard and I did my research and I learned about trading and I learned about covered call options, and I just kept growing. And I see that the community has a need to learn. And that's what I want to do. I want to teach them so they have less fear, less stress, and can make a lot of money.
So like, as you mentioned, you have a YouTube channel. There is your YouTube channel and Instagram page in the chat. So go please subscribe and follow. Say good morning to some people tuning in. We got Andy, Val's here, Hyder's here, Frank's here from Watsonville. We do have Flavio from Grandview, Washington. He put Donkey, Washington, but we got Josh Burdick here. Joe V stopped by, but Hyder has making a lot. Oh, we see Victor here from the school community. Thanks for stopping by. I haven't seen you here before. Alex is here, but Hyder has a lot of great points. Well, one, he says, Harrison, we need to talk. All others are garbage. Bitcoin only. The 10-minute blocks add to its security. He says, Hyder also says people have a tough time understanding digital scarcity. Get it before it gets you. And he says, yes, Nick and I need to tag team to help the ignorant to comprehend. But the one thing he says he does disagree with Nick is I want custody to retain monetary sovereignty outside the dollar system and its capital controls.
Yeah, I understand why people want that. And that's kind of why everyone got into it in the first place, was that decentralization, no government regulation. They don't trust the government. And I don't blame them a lot of times. You know what I mean? They like to take your, put their hands in your cookie jar and take some of your cookies. I mean, the government just bought Intel or somehow got Intel. You know what I mean? They're doing these things that, a little bit of NVIDIA and stuff. I don't like it. Maybe there's some handshake deals that I don't know personally that they're going to benefit the company from, some government contracts and things like that. So I completely understand that. The reason like I said, I don't want to do that is just for the reason of I like selling my covered call strategy, because I'm making, I made $7,000 this week, between we and America, I guess, in the world. But I just think covered calls are the way to go. So I totally get it. And Hyder, I love he's just an awesome guy, and I appreciate his coming on these channels, asking great questions and all this.
We got Aaron Wildfire Creation tuning in from Instagram. He says Harris is a god amongst men. So he says, "What's up, TB?" But yeah, Aaron, send in some questions. If I know you got some up your sleeves, but yeah, like I definitely think a lot of people are look. I think a lot of people liked your interview with Dion because Dion always pushes back, right? He always makes you think. But I think what a lot of people may have heard was also how you're generating cash flow from your IBIT. And I think that's where a lot of people want to maybe know a little bit more about. And so I don't know if you want to give I'm sure you don't want to give an exact dollar amount, but I believe you said 7,000 you made. Was it a week, a month?
This week I made it this week, just off the covered call strategy. So what you need to do is you have to have 100 shares to sell a contract. And once you have that 100 shares, you can now sell a covered call contract for a certain strike price, and they give you a premium. Maybe they give you $1.50, $3, $5, 20 cents. It's all different based on your stock or whatever you're trying to sell your covered calls in. But for me, I have a lot of shares, so it's a little easier for me. And I throw hundreds of contracts out there. I make a little premium, make sure it's safe, and they give me the cash right up front. And if they hit your price, then you have to sell your shares to them. But I don't care because my shares are so far in the money up there, it doesn't bother me. I think what's lost in a lot of things, like even when I was talking to Dion about it, is we know the 4 strategies for real estate for making money, right? The tax savings, the amortization, the cash flow, and the inflation hedge. But people don't really know about Bitcoin and all the same things that are a part of it. You do have the inflation hedge because there's a limited supply. You do have tax savings. When you have long-term capital gains, well, they can't tax you on the first like 95 grand of it. So you could literally sell 95 grand every year and not get taxed on it federally. Now, if you live in a state like Florida, you're not paying state taxes on that either because they have no capital gain tax. So you got the tax gain. It's beautiful.
Oh man, Aaron, great to see you, man.
Yeah. Yep. So then there's cash flow. Like I said, I'm making cash flow. I'm getting tax savings. I have a hedge against inflation. So I feel pretty good. You know what I mean? I got all the things real estate has, without all the termites and toilets and all those tenants. But I still love both. I'm just saying that I get to balance them because my next plan is to buy more real estate. And then I'm going to drop that cash flow into my Bitcoin. And I'm just going to use it as a drip. Brandon Turner talks about an oil well where it's just pumping you oil and making you money. And then every real estate investment you have is just like a bunch of oil rigs, just making you money every month. Well, I'm going to just dump my money from that rig into my Bitcoin. And that's just my next plan as I'm developing and growing. And then that's my diversity because I really think there's nothing better than real estate and Bitcoin.
Aaron from Instagram, it says, as a father, husband, you do yourself and your family a disservice by not taking calculated and educated risks to better you and your family's future. Uneducated risk puts all of your family at risk. He's smarter than he looks. He doesn't like to admit, but Aaron's a very smart guy.
Are you saying he looks dumb? What are you saying?
No, but he's a firefighter, so he would get a bad rap. But
firefighters are amazing.
But yeah. So like I said, I don't know what would be your average. I guess like you said, you made 7K last week. So on a monthly basis, probably what would you say your cash flow be possibly, or in a I don't want to like specifics, but
yeah. So my cash flow is going to be different than anybody else because it's all about the shares you have in IBIT or Tesla. You can do it for any of the stocks. So I wouldn't really get hung up on that. I would just get hung up on accumulation of equities so that you could build 100 shares at a time and sell your covered calls just like that. I think that's the key. Also, because I'm I study what's called like a liquidation heat map. So I could see kind of when it's getting overheated. So I could lower my threshold for covered calls and make more premium one week, or if it's undervalued and not do that. So there's just different options there.
All right. Aaron says smart ass. But okay. Hey, what's up, Bill? Bill tuning in, all fired up. But Flavio says, yeah, if Harrison jumped off, his internet was going in and out, so he's gonna restart his computer. But Flavio says Bitcoin is getting more common here, and in Mexico, you can find ATMs to cash out Bitcoin. Hyder says the strike price for covered calls is what is chosen by those selling the call. So selling is by consent, if anyone was wondering. Okay. Bill, all fired up, says if someone wanted to put $50 per month, how would you get that?
How would I get that? Like how would I would
Mm,
invest that, you mean maybe? If I would invest it, I would just buy my IBIT $50 a month. If you did it like 10 years ago, there's a guy who did like I think it's $10 a month for the last 10 years. He's made like 24 million bucks on 36 grand.
so where do you have a brokerage account? Or where maybe he's asking where would be the easiest place to start or
Okay,
something.
well, yeah, you have Schwab and Fidelity. You have a bunch of different brokerage accounts. You can pick whatever one is best for you. You might even use Robinhood. It's free. You just got to put your money in and connect it to your bank account. It's been great. They're innovative. It's safe. That's one of those stocks that's been emerging. They're going to join the S&P pretty soon here too. I love Robinhood as well. So I think that's what he might be saying. And you could just sell covered calls straight from there. Now the safe thing on covered calls is a 10 delta. There's Greeks. There's things to learn. So it's hard to summarize in just like a couple minutes. But 10 delta is the safest one to me. But you are risking your equity when you do sell a covered call. So it could go down. It's up to everyone, but I would watch some videos on that. I should probably start doing a few videos on exactly like the process of that. But that's what
Yeah,
I would recommend.
yeah. So I mean, just we can move on to some questions. But so if you were to do your covered calls, you would say, I mean, maybe how much time do you spend weekly or daily or something, maybe?
Um, I don't know. It's not like I guess 2 hours a month maybe on it. You literally can just go on and do it in 5 minutes and then you forget about it. But I do it weekly. A lot of people will do like 30 to 45-day covered calls, get you more premium, less work, less stress, less concern. I'm a weekly call trader, but it's really easy. Literally, you just throw your 10 delta in there. I want to do more than 45 days personally, but some people do. And it's just easy money. That's what I'm saying. Do it on the first of the month, just like real estate. I love the first of the month when I had tenants because it was payday. I felt good. I felt like a boss. I knew my investment was worth it once they paid, of course. And then so you can do the same thing on covered calls. Just do it on the first for the month. Get your premiums. Like that's what I just started doing recently as well. Is just like I want a certain amount each week and going from there.
Welcome back, Harrison. Let's see.
Thank you.
Casey says, question to Nick. What do you think about ETH?
Well, how do I put this politely? I really don't like anything other than Bitcoin. ETH is like slow and pretty much crap, to be honest with you, in my opinion. It's old technology, but it has name brand recognition. And you're having some people like Tom Lee and others put their name behind it, and they hold weight. It's like Warren Buffett or Berkshire Hathaway just buying in Lennar. Like, oh man, they did it. It must be good. So it is moving up, and they're making some changes. Personally, I think Solana is so much faster. The market, like it's just bringing in so much money. Like it's just so much better than ETH personally. But it doesn't mean like if you ever heard the markets are unreasonable, right? And they could be unreasonable longer than you can be solvent. So ETH could just keep going up. It might, I don't know, but I wouldn't trust someone not to just sell shares at the end and take your money from it. They're barely reaching an all-time high after like 5 years, whereas Bitcoin just keeps going to the moon. And then you also have what's called MicroStrategy, a Bitcoin treasury company, and they have over 600,000 Bitcoins. I mean, and very low leverage. And there's a bunch of companies like this. Now, there might be some for Ethereum getting started, but I trust the limited supply. I trust that I don't know who really created it other than Satoshi. And I know I'm not going to get rug pulled at the end of that. But again, diversify. Do a little if you feel comfortable with that. I just recommend Bitcoin because I believe it's going up forever. I don't know about the other ones. And I want to also say, like Bitcoin is slow. It's like a slow moving dinosaur. Like it's meant that way to be more secure. So you have miners mining Bitcoin and they're fighting each other for each little block. And that's great. Like you want that because they're protecting the blockchain. So it's a really good thing. Whereas like a Solana, much faster, it's lightning speed and it's great. I actually like both of those a lot, but I stick to Bitcoin. But if I were to bet, I think Solana could be like incredible one day as well.
Hyder says the Bitcoin thesis makes Bitcoin the hardest money ever created. I think Fidelity has proof of reserves for the Bitcoin they hold. Otherwise, it
Yeah.
could be Bitcoin derivative without verified proof of Bitcoin.
Right.
Okay. Not all Bitcoin
Yeah.
ETFs are the same. Make sure they have what they say they have. With Bitcoin,
Right.
that can be proven. So IBIT, it would fall where, Nick?
So IBIT is the world's greatest ETF, you know what I mean, in my opinion, because
Yep.
BlackRock owns it. And BlackRock pretty much
Yeah.
owns the world, right? You have Larry Fink, you have the biggest bank of money there is possible. So, like, I know it's safe. I know they have to follow regulatory possessions. Like, they got to make sure like people buy it, and they got to buy those coins within T+1 day or -1 day. So they're constantly just really keeping it with the ebb and flow of Bitcoin. Whereas a treasury company like MicroStrategy, it's volatile. It has an owner, Michael Saylor, who's awesome, but at the same time could do crazy things too. You see Musk throws a tweet out there and Tesla shoots down. That's not going to happen here with ETF of Bitcoin. It's just going to move up and down with Bitcoin itself. So it feels a lot more safe, less volatile. And I just absolutely love it for that reason. Another reason is the liquidity. You could sell IBIT and get your liquidity anytime for cash. It's highly accessible, right? That's a great thing. I love the portability of it. You can store millions in IBIT and take it anywhere in the world. It's always going to be there. You know what I mean? Same thing for that hardware wallet, which people like as well. And I more than anything, I just think that it's low maintenance, and I want low maintenance in my life. I had great experiences with real estate. Like I said, I plan on going back there, but I also teach full time. I've coached basketball for 20 years. I was athletic director. I have 3 kids, a wife. I'm in ministry, and I just do so many things that I just want to do less. You know what I mean? And now that I did YouTube, it's actually a lot of work too. I'm like, man, to get a video out every day for the daily huddle, like Bitcoin news, it takes me some time.
So well, changing topics real quick. So you know how to take these lives, right? And you can run it through Opus Clips too.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So you can use any of this too on your platform, whatever clips work for you. But so question though, so like IBIT, does that how would a lender look at that? So if you had certain amount of funds in there, does a lender look at that just like a regular ETF or I guess part of your assets?
Well, when I bought real estate and I had money in those things, they would look at it as like a proof of reserves. So they wouldn't count it as my income or anything of that way. You know what I mean? They wouldn't, because they knew it was volatile, and if I wanted to take a loan out of it or something, I'd have to do that separately. But they did check to see that I did have a proof of reserves, and they used that as well. So it was really good for those things. And as you can see, there's changes going on with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and all those things coming up here. So Bitcoin's becoming a real asset class that people are starting to trust, feel good about it. And I mean, you see people like Grant Cardone, who's in real estate now. He's buying Bitcoin with some of his rentals and his income money. If you follow him at all, I'm not really a big Grant Cardone fan personally. Well, not that he's a bad guy, but I don't know, but 10x, whatever, But at the same time, the man's buying Bitcoin, and his brother's actually a big Bitcoin person. So I really like that as well. They're from Lake Charles, Louisiana, where my auntie lives. So pretty cool.
Let's see. Let's see. For those that own Bitcoin, how do you overcome that fear of volatility?
Well, for me, that's pretty much easy because I do the covered calls. So like as it's going down, I'm making money. And then when it goes back up, I'm patient enough to let it go back up and make money. And then I love the volatility. A lot of people don't like it because they're not option traders. And it's a new asset. So it's scary for them. I get it totally. Because you buy in the S&P and you're going to make your little 10% every year, hopefully on average. And it barely moves. It moves 0.5%. It moves 1%. You could lose 20% a day here. You know what I mean? In Bitcoin, I mean, they've lost 50% a day back in the day when there was less adoption. I don't think it happens anymore. I think the winters are over for Bitcoin. That doesn't mean there isn't pullbacks. That's natural. That's healthy. And a lot of times, all it is they're grabbing leverage, liquidity. So people put in longs at 5x, 10x, 50x, 100x. So they put in 1,000, but at 100x. So it's really 100,000. Well, the market makers, they're going to grab those and they want those. So they're not even really, Bitcoin's not even really selling. Those market makers are selling the coins they own, and they're just rebuying them back lower while also scooping up everything on their platform. I don't know why people do it personally. They also do it for shorts. It's just a crazy thing. When you start to really understand what's going on, you feel a lot better about it. Because I could literally go, it's about to sell. I could see all the leverage down there, or I could see all the shorts up above. It's about to take off a little bit more. And then some things you can't predict. You know, you can't predict Iran getting bombed, and you can't predict a tweet from Trump or something. You know, you can't predict certain things that happen, you know, Russia, Ukraine, and some of the macro events. But, you know, again, if you know long term that it's going up forever, like I feel personally, then you don't really stress about it.
Yeah, Hyder
And I
says
would say start
volatility
small.
is vitality. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like
I
Harrison,
mean,
for you,
that
for you, you know, right? Like I think a lot of the reason why you switched or pivoted to real estate from maybe stock investing more was like the ease for if your wife had to take control of it or manage it, right? So is that something where like
yeah.
iBit or something is piquing your interest or whatnot? I think his Wi-Fi is lagging.
So I actually do own some iBit as well.
Yeah.
That it's one of those where I'm just putting small amounts in there. Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah, my Wi-Fi is pretty bad. But yeah, I do own some iBit at the same time. It's all small amounts that I'm like, if it goes down significantly, I'm not gonna lose sleep at night. I mean, I'm still more interested in my Teslas, my AI stocks, which I know a lot better. Um, but at the same time, it's one of those where they're kind of diversifying. But yeah, it still goes back to my wife. She's like, you know, stocks are stocks, crypto's crypto. It's, you know, foreign language. It's like she understands real estate. She sees it. And I mean, it would be the same way as almost if you're seeing gold, something more tangible. And I mean, some people are just like that, and that's okay. But it's one of those, if like, you know, if I get cancer again, or if I have to like think about what's going on, at least it's like she can say, hey, this is here. It's like when we work with the CPAs, it's very straightforward for tax depreciation and everything. So it's a lot, you know, quote unquote, safer in that format. I mean, for me, it's like I'm risk tolerant. I would never say I'm risk on. So that's why I'm like, okay, I'll buy small amounts of certain cryptos here and there.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's one of those that I know I think I started a hornet's nest with Hyder, but it's just one of those where I would love to see something like Bitcoin to be more, I don't know, more of a currency, or if we're looking for some sort of international currency or something. So that's why it's like I'm more interested in Monero or something like that. I'm starting to go in that way, even though it's going up slowly. There's a lot of it that I really think there's potential, and I think a lot of more of the developing companies will probably go more that way. Developing countries, sorry.
You know, I wanted to say, you know, I don't know if you guys are basketball fans. I love the Lakers like Mark does. And I just,
Whoa.
but I do love
No,
the Lakers. And if, you know, when the owner bought the Lakers, if he would have put that much money in and just held it in the S&P, he would actually have the same 10 billion that he sold the team with without all the championships and all the stress. So it's kind of interesting how compound interest could really work in your favor with that amount back then. So I just think I'm not an S&P person. You know, even Hyder in the chat's talking about S&P 7. Really, you know, there's 500 businesses in the S&P, but most of them like suck. They lose money. They're not very good. It's those big ones like Nvidia, Netflix, Meta, Google, and so on, and I even Microsoft. But I think a lot of those are starting to suck too. Like, what has Apple really done lately? And Meta's still banking on Facebook. So I think there's some things that are changing. I actually think MicroStrategy might be in the Mag 7 one time in the future, but we'll see.
Bringing up basketball, and I think, we were just in sports in general, right? I think a lot of what I kind of want to touch on this live stream also was, not taking action or playing it too safe, or what's risky in a sense, right? So like I think you always hear about it in sports too, right? You can't play to what is it? Can't play not to lose in a sense, right? So you gotta be, either pushing the ball up court or trying to score in a sense, right? So I think that's the same thing with investing, right? Can't just be playing it safe all the time. And I think that's like you've talked about on with Dion and Zuber and a lot of your reels and your shorts is kind of how money's losing value. And if you're not doing anything, you're just falling behind basically, right?
Yeah, the melting ice cube, they're printing fiat. It's kind of dirty when you think about it. They tax you on everything. Like, I paid 50% taxes this year. I had a huge income. I sold some things like my some real estate stuff and just other stuff. But, they're getting you on the taxes. Me, I tithe 10%. So there's 10% of my money to my church. And then there's property taxes and car registration and sales tax. And there's a tax for everything. When you realize it's pretty hard to be rich if you don't use great strategies to save money on taxes, own businesses, own assets. Like going back to basketball, I think Michael Jordan said, you miss all the shots you don't take, so honestly, if you're not trying, if you're not in the game, I mean, anybody could comment from the stands, coach should do this, the players need to box out. Well, get in there and do it yourself and show them how it's done. I used to run some drills. I don't do much running now, but I used to run some drills with them. And, we got to show them this is how it's done, be the example and model it. And I'll be honest, I share a lot of things with my kids. I want them to see me. They're already like, can you put in an application for a YouTube channel for me? I'm like, it's not how that works. But I'm teaching them. They're excited about it. I show them some brokerage. I show them how Bitcoin is, and I talked to them about real estate. They went to all my rentals as we were showing them or selling them. And I just think it's good for the future to show people they have to do things. And anything worth it takes time. I got a college degree. Maybe you don't need a college degree, but at the same time, it shows that I could do something for a period of time and be successful. And I think that's what everything is. If you want something that's worth it, you need to do something for a period of time and be successful at it by working your butt off. And for me, it was all learning it. And then after that, the rest was easy. I could do real estate right now in my sleep. I could teach a course in it. What I did, small multifamily. I can't teach all. I don't know Airbnb and I don't know storage or anything else. And I could do the same thing for Bitcoin, because once you learn it, you feel pretty confident in it and you don't get shaken. If I told Mark, real estate's not going to work anymore, you would laugh because you feel so confident because you know the truth. The truth is it will, and it will forever.
The one thing I found, interesting, even talking to Dion, he, like I said, he makes you think, right? So
Yes.
after your guys' live or during your guys' live stream, was there anything that he said that maybe made you question Bitcoin or make you question your stance on Bitcoin in a sense?
No, not at all. It's like my wife, if I'm telling her how to put makeup on, I know like 1% about that. So it's like, I can't really, she ain't going to listen to me. You know what I mean? And I love Dion, everything he says, I take as gospel when it comes to real estate and small binder method and everything else. But his Bitcoin knowledge is still growing. And I think that's great because there's 99% more room to grow in that area. And I think that's the same thing for the whole globe. So as that continues to grow, you get more comfortable. What did you do, Mark, when you started to grow your knowledge in real estate? Maybe I need to buy some of this. You know what I mean? Maybe I need to change my life and how I spend my money. I got an old car. I have enough money to I could buy a new car cash right now, but I have an old car because I'd rather buy it on assets that go up in value instead of just my car right now. I learned that from the lumberjack too. He had an old car before. He wanted the Lambo. He used to talk about it. I don't know if he still does. I haven't really heard about the Lambo in a long time. But sometimes you make sacrifices for things that aren't necessary for the wants you want in the future.
I think he is. Yeah, I think there's a certain vehicle he is looking at, and of course, he's trying to get a deal on it. It's like,
Yeah.
you have enough money, just buy it. Well, but that he is what he is, and that's what got him successful too, right? So I think it's also a game for him, right? Like he's like, I can buy it, but I want to see what kind of deal I can get for it. Hold on. Harrison messaged me. He says Coconut Wireless is killing him. He does have some questions for you. He says, Um, is there a similar point in world history that a Bitcoin event has happened?
Well, I mean, there's tons of events. I mean, even let's just talk about in the US history, going off of the gold standard into the money printing fiat, right? Why did they do that? Why did they, back in the day they had coins as well, and they would actually shave the coins on the outside of them to kind of get a little bit of the silver, a little bit of the gold off of them, a little bit of the money, and they'd go melt it down and build their own coins. Well, gold's really heavy. You can't just go walking around like Wells Fargo. They had the the little Wells Fargo and the horses, and they'd get robbed, and it was just not a good idea, right? You can't just hold heavy gold around of that value without getting killed. So Bitcoin, or then money, they went to money, and money is paper. It's really nothing. It's just like Bitcoin. It's nothing. It doesn't have any value. We just all agreed that it does have value because the United States said this is now equal to your kind of gold. You know what I mean? The lie was, though, that they just kept printing the money. They don't have gold that matches the money. You know what I mean? And so that keeps printing. Well, now we move to a digital currency in your bank account, your debit card, your credit card. Like, it's all digital. You don't really see the cash anymore because the cash is not really real anyways, in my opinion. Not to sound like a crazy person, but it's just not. We just agreed that that's what a value is. Well, now we're agreeing Bitcoin has a store of value. It's digital, just like a debit card, a credit card, but you don't have those banks trying to control you when you could get a loan, when you can't get a loan, and they're not liking it. Like, this is a lot of pushback for them. But guess what? You're going to see a lot of adoption for them as well. They're going to let you stake it. They're going to want that money there. They're going to try to protect what's theirs. You know what I mean? Because as people move on from banks, I mean, Donald Trump himself, he wasn't getting loans. His kids talk about it all the time, and now some of his kids, their planets on boards like Metaplanet company. They're a Bitcoin treasury. One of the Eric Trump, he's on their board. They're making the changes to move in the modern world. And I think history is showing that we don't like when the governments rip us off. I mean, even as fellow Americans, we moved, right? The Tea Party, and we're gone. We're not paying taxes. We're sick of this stuff. And somehow now we're paying taxes, 50%. And like I said, sales tax, property tax, car registration. Dude, they have like a fast track here in California. It's like a carpool lane, but now you got to have the little buzzard, and they charge you every 3 to 5 miles, 15, 30, $1.50 to get in there. And it's like, my taxes paid for that road, and now you're charging me with that money. It's crazy. So, I don't know. It's a hard world to live in.
Well, you're living in a different country, that's why.
That's true. That's true.
Harrison has another. He says, what coaching style does he take to basketball, and does he do it with trading?
Yeah, what made me a great coach, I think, was the ability to pivot and just coach my team with what I had. If you have race horses, you take those to the racetrack. If you have farm horses, you take them to the farm. And so I would build my offenses and my defense schemes all around what I had. Well, again, I did that with real estate, and I saw what was going on. I saw inflation was going crazy here in California. I built an ADU because I knew that I could get big money for it fast. And I didn't flip it. I rented them out, and then I sold them because the 1% rule, right? That's why I think ADUs in California are amazing, because you can actually get the 1%. It takes you 200 grand to get it, and then you can sell it or rent it for $2,000 a month. You can't do that on a normal house. And they're changing the law to where you can actually subdivide them and sell them as individual rental or individual properties. I think they just started in San Jose for the first time. So I think that's pretty cool as well. Well, I pivot the same thing for Bitcoin. I went to another asset where I saw a positive upside. Just like I did my coaching, I'm going to do it differently. I saw a new government. I'm going to go with the new government, the way the refs are calling it. I think if you want to be successful in this, you're going to pivot to what works best from you. Even Michael Zuber, he did sales and he made tons of money. And then he's like, you know what? I see this real estate thing. I can maybe, get passive income from my time. And then he went from probably being the landlord to getting a property manager. And then, like, you just start pivoting and making it better. And I think that's the key. And then he sells cups and books and has his channel. And the man's a pivoter. I have so much respect for Zuber and those guys because they pivoted and they've been successful in really every single thing they've ever done because of it.
Hyder wants to make sure everyone knows it's Bitcoin and hockey. Hockey's the only sport.
What's his team? I'm curious.
Hyder, if you're there, what's your hockey team? But yeah, I totally, so I did, so as people know, I recorded Zuber on Thursday. We do have our I go through his comment section on his videos, and we bring up some certain comments or whatever's interesting. But there was a comment, I'm not sure if it was on your video with him, but someone did comment. So why would you invest in Bitcoin, or would you invest in a house, I think, just for appreciation? Isn't that really what you're doing when you invest in Bitcoin? That was a question. Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, again, like I said, there's similarities to Bitcoin and real estate because there's a limited supply. And even though they're mining a supply, eventually it's going to end. Oh, LA Kings. There we go. California team. I got it. So there's limited, but there's great tax reasons. So it's not just the supply, equity, and inflation going up, but you're also getting it from the tax reasons. You could sell for 90, 95 grand, no federal taxes. If you have no state, boom. So you got tax reasons, right? You have limited supply and inflation. And you also have, for me, cash flow. I'm getting my IBIT covered call strategy working. And so I'm getting cash flow. So I actually invest because I'm getting all the things that real estate does, but I'm getting it in an asset that might explode, 100x in the future. But I'm also going to reinvest it back into my real estate. Again, I'm going to pivot again, especially as this administration gets closer to the next election. I don't know what the new campaigns are going to be. I'm going to be watching it closely and seeing what works best. And I, as Mark knows, I want to move to Charlotte one day. I really love North Carolina, South Carolina, right on that border. It's a beautiful place, and I'm going to keep adjusting everywhere I go. So I'm going to buy real estate in Charlotte when I get a chance.
For me, I guess it seems like, maybe the timing worked out for you or whatnot, right? Like, so you already had your real estate portfolio, you already had maybe assets and equity, and you were able to kind of pivot, or like you said, dump that into Bitcoin. So if someone was starting today, right, and they were trying to decide on an asset class, do you see maybe one path better than the other, or would you try to be doing both at the same time, or would you focus on one or the other?
Well, I think that I would. Well, I'm biased. I'm into Bitcoin, so it's kind of tough for me to say. Like, I'd be doing my IBIT daily. I'd dollar cost average into it because I think it's going up forever. And that's what I would start, because you could start with $10, $50. You could just keep buying a little bit of IBIT every week. I mean, I got a friend that recently texted me, I got $10,000 now. He was excited. He's put in 6,000, but he's just been dollar cost averaging little bits, and he's super excited. So you could dollar cost average in that. You can't really do that in real estate. You got to put down a down payment, but you could be smart about how you leverage. I used a HELOC. I moved some cash around. My wife had an income, and I would put that to the side, or I'm going to use that for my next project. Or, there's a lot of different ways you could do that. I think you want something that's concrete like real estate, because it's going up forever, in my opinion. That people need to live there. That it's a cash flowing giant, especially like any house could pretty much cash flow if you have the biggest down payment, right? So like there's ways to make it work for you. I mean, Thatch to Win talks about, like, just, if you have 10 all paid off houses, you're rich for the rest of your life. And Michael Zuber talks about get to 4 and that will change your life, So I just think, as terms of, I would do both. Like, if I could do it again, or when I do it again, when I buy the next property, I'm going to just get the cash flow and I'm going to put it into Bitcoin. I'm going to let my amortization, and I'm going to let my that property kind of go up in inflation, but my cash flow is going to go to my Bitcoin. So if you could kind of create this spinning flywheel of money, to just keep getting richer and not really live off your investments like that, where the equity could just keep growing, that's the key. You don't want to really spend any of the money that you're doing. Whereas me, that's why I use the cash flow. I live off of that. And right now, think about Dion. He lives off his cash flow. He's retired, right? Because of the great decisions he made.
We got Lynn tuning in. That's kind of why Harrison likes the Costco background, but I told Lynn that the Costco background is what knocked Harrison out of here because of his coconut wireless, and she said that's karma. But Hyder says about that comment about investing in a home just for appreciation. He says, and kind of comparing it to Bitcoin, he says that comment shows ignorance. Bitcoin provides monetary sovereignty by being a bearer asset, an asset not controlled by anyone but me and natural supply and demand metrics. He says first mover advantage is real, but there's still so much room for Bitcoin. I hear you saying that all the time to grow by taking value from other asset classes. Example, as more decide to buy Bitcoin rather than treasuries. Let's see, Harrison. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, on my page, I'm going to do this like, hodl Bitcoin, and it shows like different cell phones over time. And it's an era of like, we are here during this, early Palm Pilot cell phone era. And we still have all the iPhone and Galaxy phones to go. We're still so early, in my opinion. And I'm going to post it on my Instagram. I'll post it on my Twitter, and I'll try to do it on my channel, just talking about how we're early. And that's truly what I believe. But if you feel uncertain, then like do what Dion did with just Tesla, or do it with Bitcoin, 1% to 2%. Get there, get your foot in the water, even just so you can start saying, I'm a Bitcoiner. You might get a little confidence. You might be inspired to research it more, read the Bitcoin Standard, throw it on Audible, or just watch my daily hodl on my podcast and learn more and feel more confident like Eider and other people do. It's still growing.
Flavio's asking, do you have a video on your channel that explains from scratch for old folks like me who don't know how to turn on a computer? Yes, and Flavio has a flip phone, so I don't know if he can get Robinhood on his phone or whatnot, but do you have a video on your channel?
A video that says how to invest in IBIT, or
well, it says from scratch, I guess maybe how to get started. Yeah. So like you said Robinhood and some other things you mentioned, right? Like
oh yeah, start on Robin. I don't have a video on that yet. I guess I should probably get that going, and I'm still, like I said, right now I'm doing my daily hodl videos, just trying to keep up with the Bitcoin news as it changes daily. And I'm going to start getting into some longer content, just like where to start from scratch, where I believe it's going, and why you should probably participate if you have any courage of your conviction, just like you probably did in real estate or bonds or whatever else it is that really started you in the first place, loving money.
So like if you weren't going to be doing the covered calls like you're doing currently, like someone could just, like you're saying, go to Robinhood, open up account and put in money and to the IBIT and just, like you're saying, monitor it, kind of see the volatility or whatnot.
Yeah.
And that's something Flavio simply could do, right? Like you're saying, if it's the covered calls might be a little more work and
Yes.
learning, but as far as just putting money in, it's just opening up account basically and linking your bank account, right?
Oh yeah, very simple. You could get it done real quickly on Robinhood. It's free. There's plenty of other ones that you could do, but Robinhood's free. It's great for beginners as well, especially. You're not looking at technical analysis or anything like that. You just put in your information, link your account, transfer over some money, and go to IBIT and hit buy. And you're gonna buy some Bitcoin, and don't throw it all in at once. Throw in a little bit. Throw it weekly. Dollar cost average. So when it goes down, you don't get stressed. You get to buy it cheaper, right? It's funny if you buy something at the store and it was $100, and then next week it was $90. Like, you'd be mad you didn't get it for the $90. But when it comes to Bitcoin, you're like, I lost money. This is terrible. I'm never buying again. What do you mean? You get it at a discount. Bitcoin's on sale right now. And that's how I've always looked. I've actually made more money buying the dips of Bitcoin because it's always retraced to an all-time high later. And I just make more money off of that. So just keep that a reminder of inflation protection, reminder of a scarcity, low maintenance. Don't even look at it again. Just open it up, buy, put it away, delete the app for the week if you need to, but just know that it's going to be okay. This is not financial advice. It's education, and you need to kind of study on your own and decide on what works best for you. But just know that it's simple. You can pass it down for generations to your kids, to your family. And I think that you'll be happy in the end of it. But, again, that's your decision.
Hyder says, Flavio, if you can find the Bitcoin white paper, I highly recommend a short read. I'll try to find the link. I believe that is the link that Hyder put down there after. Bill says, white paper, more info, please. Flavio says, I'll wait for the video, Nick. Bill, all fired up, says, when you say IBIT, is it just listed as IBIT?
Yes, it's listed as IBIT, IBIT, just like you spelled in the chat, and it's owned by BlackRock, and it moves basically with the Bitcoin price up and down. It's the most safe money-backed company in the world, BlackRock, right? They own the world pretty much. Larry Fink, watch some videos on Larry Fink. He's going to tell you he thought it was a scam, Bitcoin, and later, as a sign of intelligence, he said, "Wow, after I really started to study it and understand it, Bitcoin is the future." And that's why they made that ETF. And it's the fastest growing ETF in history. It passed gold and everything else in terms of not the monetary amount, but the speed as to where we got to this point. So it's pretty awesome.
Looks like Hyder's saying maybe he can't share the working link here, but I said maybe Hyder can share it in the school community and people can take a look at it from there. I mean, not Hyder, but Harrison did have another question. He says, as folks with young kids, how do you teach Bitcoin and investing?
Yeah. Well, as folks with young kids, I teach them about money. I think that's the key. That's one thing why, I started my daily hodl videos on Bitcoin news because I fell in love with Zuber's channel because of his daily financial news. I got a master's degree. I do teach economics and history, but I love learning about money. And as you learn about money, well, even you, all these, if you're in real estate, like I've been, you probably read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and you learn that debt is good, and that you want to buy assets. And if you even follow Kiyosaki right now, he's talking about buy Bitcoin. It's the future. So I think that you want to just teach them about money through the same concepts. At my school that I teach at, we actually have a financial literacy class, and we talk about Dave Ramsey, and we talk about Kiyosaki. We talk about the differences. We talk about how they're friends, but they have different philosophies, and that probably 90% of people Dave Ramsey is great for. But that 10%, those entrepreneurs or those people that want to stretch themselves and have passive income and grow forever, they're going to really want to get involved with Robert Kiyosaki. And if you look at people like Zuber and Lumberjack and Dion and Mark and everyone else, they've leveraged their money to make more money. And all you did really was study finance. You learned what money is happening. You learned that that same house that you bought in 1965 is worth way more. Like, how it's old, right? How can it be worth way more? That's because money is not worth as much as it used to be because they keep printing it. Then the same goes for Bitcoin. There's a limited supply and it's worth more because people keep paying more for it because global liquidity keeps going up. And if you watch the FOMC with Jerome Powell, you could tell that interest rates are likely getting cut in September. Likely means money printing is coming here soon because they're worried about the economy and they don't want nothing breaking. And guess what? If you own assets, this is good news. I think Michael Zuber did a daily financial today about like the wealth gap and how people that own assets just got a little richer and they're going to.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what you're hearing a lot on social media too. I think that yes, the wealth gap is growing, but I think it goes back to kind of this topic of us saying that if you're not taking some risk or investing, you're just kind of falling behind, right? I mean, if you're just putting money in your savings account or whatnot, even if now, I mean, some savings accounts are maybe 4% or whatnot. Even that, I mean, it's you're barely keeping up with inflation and whatnot. So it's definitely the what may have worked 30 years ago is definitely going to really put you behind the curve in today's economy, right? And I think that's what you're talking about. I think that's what you're trying to help people realize, that you kind of have to do things a little bit different, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's not just about Bitcoin. It's really just about money. I'm just giving you the up-to-date news about Bitcoin and telling you more about it and educating you because a lot of people, they don't really know. It's still new. A lot of people they don't talk to in circles that have Bitcoin. Like I said, I've been honored to be on your channel and Dion's and Zuber's where they're opening up to the conversation. Even I know Zuber, he wouldn't want my comments about Bitcoin sometimes. And now I'm on his channel and he's like totally open to it. He's loving it. And that doesn't mean he's investing more into it. He's still, because he knows what he has works and it's great. And he's about to get some Las Vegas rentals. But I just like that, people are now willing to listen a little bit more, learn more. And all they're really learning about, it's not Bitcoin. They're learning about money.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the biggest thing. And, it's really just realizing that, and I think Dion talked about it with you too, is there's so many asset classes out there. And it's really also just finding one that excites you. And like I said, I see that excitement for Bitcoin with you. And, even Hyder, the way he talks about Bitcoin, you can see that passion about it and that even just learning about it, right? So it keeps you engaged also, right?
Yeah. I have a
Uh,
question for you, Mark. Have you thought about more about Bitcoin yet?
You know, yes, I've never really been against Bitcoin per se. It's more that I guess allocating cash flow now almost feels like it's slowing down the progress in a sense where how they talk about like most real estate investors are broke, right? Because the money's coming in, it's being
Yeah.
put back into a property, or it's getting put for the next down payment, or it's getting you're acquiring more assets. So I think from that standpoint, that's more on where it's been for me, not so much the side of I don't like Bitcoin or I'm not interested in Bitcoin. It's more like if I put a certain amount of money in here, now it's almost like preventing me from getting my next real estate transaction. But at the point, and like the young guys talk about like the 5 years of suck, and even Cody Davis was talking about it the other day. He's only now really starting to see the fruits of his labor. Like only now he's really, and he's kind of cleaning up his portfolio too. But only now he's really starting to see the benefits of the assets as far as maybe some cash flow and whatnot. And maybe he doesn't have to reallocate as much things now for the next purchase. So from that standpoint, for me, I'm at that point too now where I can probably start considering putting some of that cash flow, like you're saying, maybe one property is dedicated that cash flow to IBIT or Bitcoin, right? Because I'm not looking to get that much more properties in a sense, right?
Yep.
But so that's kind of where I'm at now, where definitely where the portfolio is at is now I can start looking at where I want to diversify some of the cash flow. And I like also now, I don't know if it was like that before. If you owned Bitcoin in a wallet before, how I know it's been changing, but like how the lenders looked at it, right? Like, so now at least because IBIT is like an ETF,
Yep.
like you're saying, the lender will look at it as reserves and whatnot, right? So from that standpoint, it makes it for me a little bit, if I'm going to keep money in a savings account anyways to be liquid for reserves in a sense for the lender, yeah, I definitely probably rather have it in IBIT, instead of earning only 3%, right? So
Yeah.
from that standpoint, that's kind of why I'm looking at probably funneling some of the cash flow into IBIT and whatnot. Hyder says Ramsey is a good gateway drug, but very limiting if someone wants to get ahead and increase their standard of living. Yep, absolutely. Invest your time into Bitcoin. Bitcoin is freedom money, free from capital controls that limit how someone can spend. Not true. Bitcoin is digital real estate, so still an REI transaction. I guess yes, but you can't. I would say you can't get the same real estate benefits, right? That you can't really leverage 20% down to acquire a bigger asset in Bitcoin, right? And you don't get the depreciation, like you're saying, the tax benefits. So yeah, you're buying digital real estate, but you're not getting the overall benefits of a real estate transaction, right? Because there wouldn't be any write-offs, right? If you were to buy Bitcoin, right? There would be no tax write-offs or anything, right?
There's no write-offs as far as that goes. The only thing, like I said, if you long-term hold it, then you could obviously not have to pay taxes federally because of the tax laws for taxes and capital gains. So that really helps. But you might have to pay state. It all depends what state you're living in. I know you're Hawaii. I'm California. They like to make us pay taxes in these states.
Yeah, it's wild. Yeah, but so this is off topic again too. But so Jeremy Taggart, who's one of the guys we work with in Pittsburgh, he's our rock star agent. But he asked me the other day, "Hey, you want to join like a fantasy football league that he's putting together?" And I guess the friend set it up as a paid league. So when you join, you pay already through Yahoo, right?
Yeah.
Hawaii is Hawaii, so I can't even join the league because it's
Wow.
illegal to participate in those type of paid sites. So
Wow.
yeah, so I mean, I play fantasy leagues, but you paying outside usually, right? The league is free, but then someone collects the money, right? But
Right.
because the person set it up as a paid site or paid league, it wouldn't let me join. It says, oh, you cannot join this league, and yeah, always. So it's crazy.
Yeah.
Let's see. Bitcoin is tax free. That's an advantage to me. Yeah. Bitcoin is not taxable. The dollars it gets traded for are. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Anything else you actually I think so I don't know, we can wrap things up. This is always a fun one. But there was one I want to bring it up with Harrison again because Harrison was on a while back with MJ. MJ hasn't been on in a while, but it was kind of a basketball topic theme one about investing. It was about like if you were to build your starting five basketball team um based on investing, like if you were going to use some of their skill sets
Yeah.
for investing, like who would be your starting five? Like I think part of it was like Olajuwon because of his versatility. I want to be, if I'm an investor, I want to have that type of kind of mindset or skills to be able to pivot and that. So if you were to have a starting five basketball team
Yeah.
related to investing and whatnot, like who would be your five?
Well, Michael Jordan, the greatest basketball player of all time, would be Bitcoin. That's for sure. He could do it all. Then I would probably go with Shaq as the most dominant. I would go with that as my real estate. It's dominant. People need it. He changes the game. He's concrete. So I love Shaq. I'd go with Magic Johnson. And I would probably put him as like a Tesla, you know what I mean? Because he's an innovator on the court and they got robots and they got, cars that are driving themselves now and stuff. It's just crazy. And I would go with let's see, Larry Bird would be one of them as well. I just think he's a legend. You need the 3-point threat, and he would probably be my long call options, right? Because he's hitting from deep. And then power forward, I guess that's probably going to be. I think the best power forward ever is Tim Duncan. He might be boring, but he's reliable. You can count on him. He's like Texas Instrument calculators. You could count on him, right? So, yeah, I'd be mixing it up that way. Maybe he's my cash, my little savings if I had real estate in case repairs are needed or anything like that. But that would be my diversified portfolio for
He'd be the savings account, right? Tim
yeah,
Duncan. He'd just be that steady.
yield. Yeah,
What? No Kobe makes your. Oh well, I guess you have two Lakers on your starting five.
I got
Okay.
Michael Jordan, so I don't need Kobe. You know what I mean? But I love Kobe. I met him a couple times, and they asked me to work his basketball camp before. He had a big camp with like 900 kids from China fly over. It was awesome. So there's a lot of cool things, but I just like that. I like things that kind of are, I guess, new and innovative and makes you question things, but you still need safety. I love real estate. I love even having some cash for safety, right? Buying the dips, or in case there's an emergency, your HVAC goes out, or a tenant doesn't pay, you got to evict them. So there's a place for all those assets, and I think people need to think about that.
Well, that on that point, that was also Zuber's response to that one comment about investing in. Would you just buy a home for appreciation, kind of relating it to Bitcoin? And his kind of response was, it's more like a insurance, his investment in Bitcoin. And like you're talking about having safety and whatnot. So some people, even though maybe it's a risky asset for some people or volatile, some people are looking at it as a safe haven, right? To diversify into some safety. So, but that was Zuber's response. Now that I remember on that comment, and I do want to remind everyone. I don't know if I think it was Friday or yesterday, but that it was the anniversary of Kobe's
Yes.
passing, right? Or was it no? Or was it his birthday? No, was it and no?
I don't remember. Actually,
Yeah.
I think it was his birthday, actually.
Yeah, birthday. So it's, I guess, a reminder, tomorrow's not guaranteed, right? And that's kind of why, we're all here trying to financially get things in a better position and financial freedom. But we got to put in that work, and I think everyone here is doing that, right? I think that's kind of what we're hoping to give people different options for asset classes and whatnot. All fired up Bill says, yeah, now I want Bitcoin. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think there's a place for it, in your portfolio, right? And I think more people are looking at that. Nick, do you have a Robinhood referral link?
I'm sure I do.
Oh,
Um,
you better get that going, man.
for sure. Yeah, follow my YouTube channel if you haven't already. It doesn't always share who's my subscriber, which I'm learning on that. So it's like,
Yeah.
I really know if they're commenting, then I get a better idea. But all those things are great. So yeah, no problem. But I love Robinhood and I love iBit, and I hope that you do too. That's all this is, education. And if you find it, like you mentioned, the risk tolerance for Zuber, it's 1%. For Dion, for Tesla was 1%. For me, it's more because I studied it more, so I feel more confident in it. And I think that's how it kind of changes, a little bit from everybody. So yeah, follow my channel, get more news about what's going on. I think you'll feel more confident because that's all it was for me. First, I was like, I'm not against it, but I think it's a little crazy. And then I learned more about it. And the same thing happened for real estate. I watched Dion, then I went over to Zuber and learned more about finance from him daily on real estate. I knew finance, but I didn't know how it impacted real estate. That 53-year spreadsheet, I remember it's 47-year spreadsheet. Now we're on like 50-year 54, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah, Bill. So if you haven't, there is Nick's YouTube channel and Instagram. So go subscribe there. I'll be back tomorrow with Dylan and Liam, who's a Pittsburgh agent investor. And also, I know I'm trying to schedule. I know Nick wants to get on with Cody Davis. We're trying to schedule that, get that figured out. I don't know if he's going to try and convince Cody to get into Bitcoin as an asset class, but we'll
I
see if
just
that.
admire all the things that he's done. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, he is he's definitely a smart kid, man. He is, but I love that he is being very transparent on how I guess maybe he feels like he made a lot of mistakes in a sense, right? And that's why he's trying to kind of clean up his portfolio, get out of some partnerships. And definitely
Yeah.
love that he's sharing that part of his journey.
By the way, I don't know about anybody else here. I don't do any partnerships. I'm not saying that for this, but I'm just saying I never, I heard Thatch Nguyen, I think, and he might do somebody. He basically said, why do I want to give up 50% of my profit? You know what I mean? So that was why I was like, you always hear bad partnerships and how that goes. I'm like, so I get to avoid the nightmare and I keep 50%. So that's why I don't really do partnerships. And yes, you could buy iBit through Robinhood for sure.
I think that's the one thing, partnerships is you just, yeah, you really gotta find your lane. Like I understand why maybe some people have to do partnerships because maybe they're in California, maybe they're in Hawaii, maybe they're in Seattle where the market is so expensive. So that may be their only way in, right? So, and then the other option is you're investing out of state or something like that. So you really got to find your comfort level and do you want to take on the possible headaches or risk having a partner, or do you want to take on the possible headaches or risk investing remotely out of state, right? So there's always, like I said, risk involved, but you just got to be able to figure out ways to navigate it.
Yep.
Yeah, all right, well, yeah, I said this is a good one. We'll figure out one with Cody Davis. Like I said, I'll be back tomorrow 11 a.m. Eastern. And yeah, so final, are you gonna be in Vegas or what, man?
As of right now, I'm not going to be in
Oh,
Vegas.
come
Sorry, man.
on.
Dude, it's Valentine's weekend. It makes it like, my wife, she's understanding, but I don't know, like, one time, a true story, I probably shouldn't, I'm not going to share this, but, I kind of missed a Valentine's Day once. And so you can't, I had a basketball game and I was, we went out and celebrated a big championship and I can't miss any more Valentine's Days, so she was like, if you end up a speaker, then I'll accept it. Other than that, no. So,
Well, what would you say you're a speaker then? Wait, okay, wait. Did you forget Valentine's Day, or you just kind of like, we got other things, and
no, I had basketball. We had a big
you
game
just
that night.
completely forget?
No, I didn't forget it. I just
Oh,
never
yeah,
really looked at it as important. I feel like every day you should love on your wife or your husband. And to me,
exactly.
it wasn't important. But my wife like made a special meal and did everything wonderful, and it's important to her. So now every time I try to make Valentine's Day very special because I've been married a while now, and I want to keep it that way.
All right, well, that's a good reason then. We'll let you slide on that.
Yeah, I want to go though. I can't lie to you. I really want to go, like really badly, especially to meet everyone in person. I want to do the Denny's thing. I'm gonna make Dion say grace. As he told me he was an atheist on his last video. I'll make him say grace at Denny's if I go. So we'll go from there.
All right. Well, thanks for doing this. I say we'll try to do this maybe every couple weeks or something. But
Oh, yeah.
everyone, thanks for tuning in. Go subscribe to Nick's channel, and I'll see everyone tomorrow.
Bye, everybody.